secularism is primarily a problem of Christian world. So if we talk about Sanatan Dharma, it's not at all specific to, let's say, Hindu people or to any other caste also. It's a social order philosophy. And all the oppressive aspects of caste system, whether it is untouchability and many other things which you have rightly articulated, is more the invention of the time when the Britishers came. Macaulay's bringing of English education, was it to actually strengthen and ensure social justice in India, or was it to ensure colonialism in India?
Sanatana denied dignity to the individual soul. All other explanations are mere high-sounding nothing. When Britishers tried to open up offices to others, why the Brahmin should oppose it? The Britishers opened the gates of schools. Who closed the doors? You say it is a way of life. It is how court judgment says that what is Hindutva, what is Sanatana? Way of life. What is way of life? Your way of life is different from my way of life. And you say the Sarvam Brahmam. Then why do you insist on the temple-oriented segregations? If Sarvam Brahmam is there, there cannot be a Panjama, Pulaya, Chandala here. All the working classes were insulted. And still you want to say that Britishers were the people who were the responsible for the degradation. I am the first generation graduate. I know how much I struggled to gain this position. You may not have that experience. We want the dignity of dignity to be restored, which were denied for 2000 years. Let us not try to hide the truth by jugglery of words.
To begin with, sir, I'm slightly skeptical of this equalization that has been done between westernization and modernization. To give few examples, if we talk about French Revolution as the ideal articulation of liberty, equality, and fraternity, we should also remember after French Revolution, there was a reign of terror in France, in which many people were massacred. The leader of French Revolution, Pierre Robespierre, after the inauguration of the French Republic, he said that this republic would survive only if people remember the name of God. So if French Revolution was the ideal secular revolution, why did the leader of the revolution had to evoke God in the first place? That's my first problem. Second thing about secularism, I very honestly believe, and you can correct me, sir, if I'm wrong, secularism is primarily a problem of Christian world. Because in Christianity, the ideal was that, look, our religion is the superior. And because state is also an extreme, so these two extremes cannot collide. So that's why we need a separation between the religion and the state. Because their religion would always attempt to appropriate the entire public space that is there. So they said we need some kind of secularism there. When we think about the Indian context, for example, now here's what I will try to disagree from you there. Again, you can correct me if I'm wrong. There is a difference between a system which is there, a philosophy that is there, and the way it is received by people. Sanatan Dharma, there is a lot of debate recently which has come up that it is wrong to translate religion as dharma or dharma as religion. There are a lot of literature which is available which suggests that dharma is actually more an articulation of a social order philosophy. So it's not community specific. So if we talk about Sanatan Dharma, it's not at all specific to, let's say, Hindu people or to any other caste also. It's a social order philosophy. So to say that, so how come the people who live here in this Sanatan Dharma culture, how do we need secularism, where we don't have a dharma which is equivalent to religion? For me, it's a puzzling thing. Why would we need secularism in the context of India, where our nature of dharma is principally opposed to that of religion? That being one thing. The other criteria here is this, that there are a lot of literature to suggest that caste system and all the oppressive aspects of caste system, whether it is untouchability and many other things which you have rightly articulated, is more the invention of the time when the Britishers came. For example, there is a great book written by, I will just tell you the author of the book. The name of the book is Caste of Mind. I will just take 2 minutes to just briefly summarize. Caste of Mind says, it's written by Nicholas Dirks. Nicholas Dirks is a renowned subaltern historian. He says what happened in India, that in 1871, Britishers conducted the first census. And in that census, what happened? People were asked to tell, what is your caste? Now, caste system in previously was seen, caste was the denominator of multiple things. But Britishers could not accommodate all the denominator factors. So say caste is actually associated with your birth. Whether if you see the original text, of the Sanatan Dharma, of the idea of Varnashram, caste instead of coming from your birth is actually signified by your karma, by your work inclination. And again, many things has been written on it. The last slight disagreement which I had with you, sir, is this, that this question of self, that in our culture tradition, by that I think you mean Sanatan Dharma, there is a culture of denaturation of self, or we have to deny self to reach God. If I still call myself as a beginner in the study of Indian culture and tradition, so I humbly accept if I'm wrong. But whatever little that I know of Upanishad, whatever little that I know of Bhagavad Gita, one thing I can say, that in Indian tradition, self is actually a manifestation of God. Self has to be denied to reach God, again is a problem which comes from the Western world. So those would be some, and lastly, this Macaulay's bringing of English education, was it to actually strengthen and ensure social justice in India, or was it to ensure colonialism in India? So those would be my humble questions.
Thank you very much for the questions, because that gives me an opportunity to explain the unmentioned ones related with this topic. Of late, there has been a false propaganda that caste system was the creation of British regime. I don't think that the Smritis were written during the British period. Smritis were written prior to the arrival of the British. The Smritis mentioned, including Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita says that one should do the work sincerely, which is determined by the birth. Even if you are not an expert in that work, if you commit some mistake, that is all right. But even if you are capable of doing better in others' work, you should not do it, because that is sinful. Very appreciable Indian contribution to equality. You call it equality. Those who benefited by it say that it is the wisest thing in the world. Upanishads, which are derived from Uttara Mimamsa. There is another Mimamsa, Purva Mimamsa. Upanishads were creation of the ruling class, Kshatriyas. No Upanishad was created by a Brahmana. Whereas the Purva Mimamsa were all creations of Brahmins. What is the content of the Purva Mimamsa? The Panchabhutas could be activated by Brahminical yajnas and mantras. Others are ineligible to, or they are not authored, they are not permitted to do this thing. This is not caste. This is Indian glory. Okay. That is all right for those who were closer to the priestly class. The Upanishads say that they disputed this Purva Mimamsa, where they say that Brahmins have the capacity, their mantras have the capacity to activate the Panchabhutas, to make the divine forces to act. They are controlling the divine forces. That is, they are divine, more divine than the king. That claims you never disputed. But when this Uttara Mimamsa, this Upanishad state that you are not the Brahman, there is Brahman everywhere. Aham Brahman, Sarvam Brahman. They just disputed the Brahminical claim. Brahman, divinity is there in everywhere. But you say that that is a philosophical level. Shankara, he was supporting this. Why he should write the Abhasutra Equality in the Brahman is at the other level. For the Laukika, the worldly life, this is inapplicable. Sudras need not be given education. They cannot have a claim over education officers. Shankara did not live in the British age. Shankara lived prior to the 8th century BC, 8th century AD. And Shankara stated that it is justifiable Sudras are denied education. And Bhagavad Gita says that the women Shudra Vaisya are Pavayonis. They are ineligible for education. You claim it a divine scripture. those affected by the scripture, the victims, we will never accept these false propaganda. And our British, they did not know Sanskrit when they came here. Who provided them Sanskrit scriptures? Those Brahmins who served them, those Sanskrit scholars who served them. These Sanskrit scholars always served the foreigners who conquered India. They became the second category bureaucrats. They enjoyed the benefit, continued their privileged position. After having served it, they will call them demon so that they can get something better from the upcoming new rulers. Even during the Mughal period, who were the revenue officers? The privileged class. Who were the victims? Who were to pay taxes? The Panchamas and Sudras. When the British came, conveniently the preceding rulers were called demons and they praised the British. Even the Anandamatti is making British the liberators. Bankim Chandra Chatterjee collected a signature of 25,000 people. Against what? Against giving women the right to education. Against giving women the right to saved from the what you call the burning in the of sati, and property rights. For against raising the age limit. All the Sanatanists, you call Sanatana, you can never explain Sanatana. It is not a religion more than that. What is more than that? If it is not a religion, why do you want why do you take objection to the word secular? If it is not you say that it is secular. No. Anything should be a progressive one. Any order should provide you a better condition if it is followed. But this Sanatana is retrograde, regressive. It wants your society to be brought back to the old order. And it glorifies caste, distribution of work, distribution of the grade. It is not horizontal division, vertical division. That is why Ambedkar stated that. It is something like a tower where from one tier to another there is no the exit or entry. Once you are born in a particular community, you are born to be there forever. Sanatana denied dignity to the individual soul. All other explanations are mere, what do you say, high sounding nothing. And we had, the Britishers were causing all these things. When Britishers tried to introduce, open up offices to others, why the Brahmin should oppose it? If they are so magnanimous, they should have allowed it. The Britishers opened the gates of schools. Who closed the doors? British opened the gates of the offices. Who closed them? Even Mangal Pandey, who is supposed to be the great liberator because he participated in the Sepoy mutiny, the Mangal Pandey, who refused to share his water with the poorer attender, stating that you belong to a niche, mean class. How a chaprasi can ask water from me? The disagreement between these two categories of people, victims of the one, the perpetrators of the crime, the struggle goes on. The British, when they raised the age limit, when they opened up the offices, when they introduced ICS and other things, they were making it general. Until now, what was happening? Only the head of the department would appoint the subordinates, all from his family, from his caste. There was no scope for others to enter into it. Power sharing is the basis of social justice. Opportunity sharing is the basis of social justice. Denying these opportunities in one way or other is amount to conspiracy. Conspirators are not liberators. Liberators are those who redeemed us from my lowest position to higher position. It may not be ideal position. I'll have to struggle a lot. I'll have to gain a lot more. I'll have to fight a lot. But still, today's position was better than yesterday's position. It is because I disputed the earlier order. If I succumbed to the earlier order, I would have been a slave today. Slaves have become rulers in other countries. Here in India, from one caste to another, it is very difficult to change. And who are the people who formulated this system? Do you say it is a way of life? It is how court judgment says that what is Hindutva, what is Sanatana? Way of life. What is way of life? Your way of life is different from my way of life. And you insisted I should not change my way of life. Why the temple should be occupied with untrained, untested people? It is Sanatana. And you say the Sarvam Brahmam. Then why do you insist on the temple-oriented segregations? If Sarvam Brahmam is there, there cannot be a Panchama, Pulaya, Chandala here. You denounced all in your Vedas as Panchamas, Chandalas, Nichas, Anasya, Adevada. All abuses were showered on the people who are not amenable to them. All the working classes were insulted. And still you want to say that Britishers were the people who were responsible for the degradation. One should have the conscience to go through the past without bias and without prejudices. I am the first generation graduate. I know how much I struggled to gain this position. You may not have that experience. But many people here are first generation learners. We know the struggles in life. We want the dignity to be restored, which were denied for 2000 years. Why there are two categories of punishments in your Smritis? Why the two categories? What the Midachara Smriti says? Trivarna Arya, Anarya Sudra. And you say that Britishers introduced all these things. Let us not try to hide the truth by jugglery of words. Let us face the fact with fact. Thank you.
உன் கடவுளை விட உன் சாஸ்திரத்தை விட உன் முன்னோரை விட உன் வெங்காயம் விளக்கமாத்தை விட உன் அறிவு பெருசு அதை சிந்தி